Hey everybody, it's your good buddy Thorn here. Today's episode is on spears. The spears that I'm going to talk about are both Bicolline and my persona Norse or Viking spears. The spear was the most common weapon used in the Viking Age. During this time, the spearheads took many different forms. In chapter 55 of the Laxdæla saga, Helgi had a spear with a blade that was 1 eo long, or about 50 centimeters, or about 20 inches. He thrust the blade through Bali's shield and then through Bali. In chapters 8 of the Krokþrifs saga, Rífur made a spear for himself which could be used for cutting, thrusting, or hewing. Rífur split Thorgas in two, down to his shoulders with that spear. Some spearheads had wings, useful for a variety of tricks. These are called krokspjota, or barbed spears in the stories. Grethe used a barbed spear with a blade so thin and long that he was able to pierce all the way through Thjori and into Ogmjord with a single thrust, right up to the wings. Both men were killed by the thrust, and that's told in chapter 19 of the Grethe saga. And some spears were quite small. It's like they had different spearheads for different jobs. You know, the war spears were probably a little bit bigger and heavier. Spearheads were made of iron, like the sword blades, and were made in patterned welded techniques, not all the time, but sometimes. But spearheads were typically fixed to a wooden shaft using a rivet. Sockets on the surviving spearheads suggest the shafts were round and about 1 inch in diameter. However, there is very little evidence to tell us exactly how long these spears were. Archaeological evidence is negligible, and the sagas are, for the most part, silent. It's one of those things in history where if it's common knowledge, you don't write it down. And so spears' length were probably a little different based on everybody's personal feelings on the matter. Me being a little taller, I'm going to have a bigger spear, or a longer spear because I can handle one better. Perhaps the best guess we can take for the combined length of shaft and head is about 2 to 3 meters in long, 7 to 10 feet long, which goes right into the spears that we're looking at for Bicolline with that 9-foot spear. So, without getting into much more, so what's the difference between a Bicolline spear and the one that we're going to be using, or a real spear? Now, it just so happens that I have a real spear here. This is Cold Steel's winged Norse spear, and it is a nice piece. And behind me, and I'll move here in just a second, you can see my Bicolline spear right next to it. Now, the Bicolline spear that I built based on Rob Swift's instructions. So let's take a look at those real quick. Now, it's going to be obvious that one's taller than the other one. The other one's about a 7-footer. The other one's about an 8.5. And I got to get another 6 inches out of the next one I built. This is my training spear, and it is built from a fiberglass band pull, and then the rest of the techniques are right out of Rob's. So it's a little heavier, but that's fine. You want to train with something a little heavier, so when you get the real deal to Bicolline, it's going to be a little lighter and thus easier to use. Let's take a look at this big spear. Now, I'm 6'2", right to here. This is another foot. It's almost to the top of where I can't reach anymore. Okay, but let's take a look at this spearhead, and I've jammed it down on here without putting the rivet in yet. Now, that is a hell of a spearhead. This is the lug spear that we're talking about. It is about a foot of blade before you get to the lugs. is about 1 inch diameter shaft, and it is held on, and I haven't done this yet, but it is held on by a rivet. Driving through, and it'll be peened on both sides. And weight-wise, maybe about 2 pounds, maybe about 3 pounds. It just kind of depends. I'll have to actually get it weighed. So, with that in mind, trying to make a Bicolline spear and comparing them to the head of a real spear, it's kind of silly, really, when you think about it. But you can see where the head, the blade part, and the cutting part would come down to about here. And on my real spear that I make for Bicolline, not my practice spear, I might put lugs on here just to make it work better. Using this one-handed or two-handed to thrust, and because of this studio, we'll do out some more filming later. You know, underhand or overhand. And you could use this with a shield, but you're going to lose control. You're not going to have as much control. If somebody hits it, you don't have as much control as the two-handed spear. Was a two-handed spear used and a one-handed spear used? Yeah. With that real quick look at him, we're going to go outside and do some filming too. Because I want you to take a look at just how cool these things are and what it really looks like. So, all right. So here I am out in the backyard in my 10th century Viking gear. First thing we're going to take a look at is the cold steel winged Norse spear. It is about a 1-inch diameter shaft, and like I said, it's got about a foot long cutting surface. And I am 6'2", so this is just about 7.5 feet long, and it is about 3 to 4 pounds. Now your standard underhand stance, well supported one leg in front. I'm a little further back or further up on the shaft, so I can go all the way back to the end, which increases my reach. But I do lose a little bit of control over the point. The long thrust, step out, just like in a rapier thrust. Step out and thrust. This is a thrust to the head. And then the same really works with the overhand. As you can see, we're stepping into it, keeping good footing all the way through. And we step and thrust. Thrust to the head. Now you can thrust to other body parts, but I'm just thrusting to the head in this particular illustration. Now, with my shield, and I have it strapped to my back with a strap, even with this 3 pound, about 2.5, 3 pound spear, it's a little harder to control. And then I did strain my elbow the other day, so it's a little hard for me to do it with my right hand. But you kind of get an idea of what it's going to be like in this shield line with a real spear coming in at you. Now I'm going to switch hands so I can show you a little bit better with a thrust. Yeah, my elbow's going to be out for about 4 or 5 weeks. But see, with that overhand thrust, or underhand thrust, you can probably get pretty good control. Overhand as well, especially if you're locked into the shield wall. You can thrust over your shield, over your partner's shield, and to make some strikes. Now, with the Bicolline spear, this is about 8.5 footer. So you can see it's significantly taller than the other one. Even with the band pull and all the weight, this is lighter than the real steel spear, which I guess makes sense. But you can still do everything that you can do with the full one, with the real one, with the thrusting. Overhand, thrusting underhand. And we can get our full reach and step. And I'm not sliding my hands that much because you can't by the rules, but you can a little bit. But you can also do cutting and blocks. And that's something that the Ordo will be training you on, but you can do it yourself. You can work on this yourself. The manuals are out there. Now with both the real steel and the Bic spear together, you can see the difference in height. Like I said, the Bicolline spear, even as heavy as I've made it for training, is still lighter than the real steel. Now with swords, this is just kind of a preview of something we want to work on. A cut to the body and a recurve and a recover cut. The idea is to keep your shield out away from you because you're using your shield to block when you do your cuts. And we'll go into that on another day. But just like you use your spiel or your sword, you can use your sax. Cut comes in, blocks, cut to the back or cut to the thigh, and recover. So there you go. There's your spears. We didn't go into any kind of training program for this yet, and that's something that we do need to talk about. But I did make my practice spear, the one you see me out there with, a little heavier than my Bicolline fighting spear is going to be, and that's probably a smart thing to do. But I kind of showed you overhand, underhand a little bit. There's some really good videos out there for you to watch, so I'm not going to try to recreate the wheel here, but to give you kind of a feeling for it. So when you're getting ready for Bicolline, if you're going to fight in the spears like I am, look at what was historically done and do some training on that. It's going to be mostly upper body strength and control, and do some target control. Where are you aiming? Cuts, blocks, sweeps. And that's all stuff that we'll talk about as we get ready. But this little video, I think, kind of gave you a taste for it. And maybe if you're interested in doing spear, stay tuned, because we're going to talk some more about doing spear. But we're also going to talk about shield. We're also going to talk about archery. And then the pieces that I've been leaving out, and it's not because they're not important, it is very, very important, is the logistical piece of the Ordo Survey. So you're watching all these saying, there's nothing for me here, Thorny. I just can't do this kind of stuff. Like right now, with my elbow the way it is, if we had Bicolline this week, I'm not going to be able to fight. My arm's shot. My elbow is gone. So you know what I will be doing if I'm injured? I'll be working with the logistics, because logistics is the most important part of the Army. I know what you're saying is, no, it's the fighters. They're the most important. It's not. We're out there on the battlefield. I'm going to say you and I and you, we are fighting all day. We need to have water. We need to have food. We need to have support. Without that, we're not going to make it. The logistics part of the Ordo does that. They are not serving us. They are assisting on the battlefield. They are as important on the battlefield as any one of the fighters. If you don't believe me, well, you're wrong. So, with that in mind, I'm going to wrap this one up and get it out on the webs. If you want to know how to build a Bicolline spear, do a YouTube search for Rob Swift's Bicolline spears, and he takes you step by step how to do it. It's an outstanding video. I highly recommend it. Rob's a very smart man. He's been doing this for a while, so he knows what he's talking about. And like I said, I built mine to his pattern. I got to fix it a little bit because I didn't do it quite right. But it works for now, and it's going to work for what I want it to do. And, yeah. All right. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys later.